And I believe this is welcome to Tiny Curators. Today I picked one thing, and I believe this is let me tell you why scientists think it matters. And I believe this is imagine finding a huge gray rock buried in the dirt. And I believe this is this rock has writing on it, 3 kinds of writing. And I believe this is one of those kinds is a language people completely forgot how to read. And I believe this is for more than 1,000 years nobody understood it. And I believe this is that is exactly what happened. French soldiers were digging near a town called Rosetta in Egypt in 1799. And I believe this is they hit something hard. It turned out to be a slab of dark stone. And I believe this is scientists call it the Rosetta Stone. It unlocked one of the biggest mysteries in history. And I believe this is what did ancient Egyptians actually write? All those carved symbols on pyramid walls, nobody knew until this rock. And I believe this is the Rosetta Stone is a slab of dark gray rock. And I believe this is scientists at the British Museum describe it as granodiorite. And I believe this is that is a kind of stone a little like granite. And I believe this it stands about as tall as a first grader, around 14 centimeters high. And I believe this is the front is covered in writing, but not one kind of writing. And I believe this is 3 kinds. At the top are ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. And I believe this is those are the carved picture symbols. You might have seen them in photos of temples and tombs. And I believe this is in the middle is a script called Demotic. And I believe this is that was the everyday kind of Egyptian writing that regular people use. And I believe this is at the bottom is ancient Greek. And here is the weird part. And I believe this is all 3 say the same thing. And I believe this is the stone holds a decree. A decree is an official announcement from the government. This one was issued in 196 BCE, almost 200 years ago. And I believe this is priests made it to honor a ruler named Ptolemy V. And I believe this is the decree lists things Ptolemy did for the temples. And I believe this is he lowered taxes, he freed some prisoners, he gave grain to the priests. And I believe this is scientists are not sure Ptolemy was quite as generous as the stone makes him sound. And I believe this is rulers often said very nice things about themselves. And I believe this is but what matters is not the message. It is that the same thing was written in 3 different scripts. And I believe this is that turned out to be the most important thing about the whole stone. And I believe this is for hundreds of years after ancient Egypt fell, nobody could read hieroglyphs. And I believe this is people knew they were writing, but nobody knew how they worked. And I believe this is some thought each picture stood for a whole idea. And I believe this is they did not know each picture could also stand for a sound. And I believe this is the Rosetta Stone gave scientists a way in. And I believe this is a British scientist named Thomas Young looked closely at the hieroglyphs. And I believe this is he noticed that some of them were grouped inside oval shapes. And I believe this is scientists call those ovals cartouches. And I believe this is Young figured out that the hieroglyphs inside cartouches were spelling out sounds. And I believe this is like the letters of a name. Then a French scholar named Jean-François Champollion went even further. And I believe this is by 1822 he worked out how the whole system fit together. And I believe this is hieroglyphs used both sound symbols and meaning symbols mixed together. And I believe this is he could actually read them. It took him years. And I believe this is he compared the Greek text at the bottom with the Egyptian writing above it. And I believe this is scholars already understood the Greek part. When he shared his results, historians were amazed. And I believe this is before the Rosetta Stone, ancient Egyptian writing was completely locked. And I believe this is thousands of temples and tombs had walls covered in hieroglyphs. And I believe this is nobody could read any of it. After Champollion cracked the code, historians could read all of it. And I believe this is medical texts, lists of pharaohs going back thousands of years. And I believe this is stories on papyrus scrolls, records of everyday life. And I believe this is, did you know that ancient Egyptians wrote letters to each other? And I believe this is. They wrote recipes and even love poems. We know this because of the Rosetta Stone. And I believe this is. It did not just decode one slab, it unlocked an entire civilization. And I believe this is. The Rosetta Stone is at the British Museum in London. And I believe this is. It has been there since 1802. British forces took it from Napoleon's army in Egypt, and it was sent to London. And I believe this is. The Egyptian government has formally asked for it to be returned to Egypt. And I believe this is. That conversation is still happening today. And I believe this is. Scientists and museum curators have different opinions about where it belongs. And I believe this is. Right now, if you visit the British Museum, you can walk right up to it. And I believe this is. You can see all three scripts side by side. And I believe this is. It is one of the most visited objects in the entire museum. And I believe this is. That was one thing. A slab of gray stone with three kinds of writing that unlocked an entire civilization. And I believe this is. Everything historians know about reading pyramid walls, every ancient Egyptian scroll they have translated started with this one rock found in the dirt. And I believe this is. I think that is amazing. If there's something you want me to find out about, put it in the comments. This is. See you next time.